Bryan, how you doing, bud?
Doing great.
Well, let me get your reaction first to the season opener in Annapolis, Maryland, against a Memphis squad that probably not a vintage Memphis squad that we remember. But this is a game maybe in the not so recent past, Alabama might have found a way to lose, given the foul trouble, given all the injuries and suspensions that they had to overcome, and they found a way to grind out a win in the second half. What do you make of that? Is this just the growth of a basketball team and also just a more talented roster?
Well, it was a big win for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. 4 guys out, 2 of your top players, really three of your top 6 or 7 guys, and then another senior in Armand Davis out. So with Collin Sexton, Braxton Key, Riley Norris, and Armand out, the one thing you could not afford is to get in foul trouble, and Alabama was in as bad a foul trouble in the first half as I can remember. 20 first half fouls. Everybody's in foul trouble. You're down 4 guys to begin with, and you're able to go into halftime with a 2-point lead. So really an impressive effort for Alabama, overcoming a lot of adversity. Now, some of that adversity was self-inflicted, and you got to do a better job of defending without fouling. I know that's been a point of emphasis coming into the Lipscomb game. But a big win for Alabama against what is not a vintage Memphis team, but as we've seen over the years at a lot of different stops, you just don't show up and ease to victory over a Tubby Smith coach team. He's taken 5 teams to the NCAA tournament, including a national championship at Kentucky in '98. So for Alabama to come out of Maryland with that victory over the Memphis Tigers was big.
Bryan, was it simply from your vantage point? Was it just an issue of not moving your feet on defense? What did you attribute to so many fouls and the way they racked up against Memphis?
Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, and my first thought was that when you're in practice for a month and a half, you're not calling it as tight. The officials, and a lot of times the officials are not calling it quite as tight. So when you get into a first game, and they are calling it tight, and they did in that first game, and that is something that I think we may see throughout the year. You have to adjust, and Alabama did not. I didn't think the officiating was great, but I think maybe worse than that was the adjustment to defending without fouling. So that's something that you got to do a better job of. And also, you have a very young roster. You've got a lot of guys that have not been in a college basketball game before, and those are things that will improve with experience, and I expect all of that to be better tonight.
Well, obviously, this game is going to be really a lot of people's first, real look at Collin Sexton, and obviously very hyped coming into this, rightfully so, given how skilled he is. What do you expect to see him tonight? Is there any danger that he's a little too hyped up, that he wants to do too much too soon? Given that, given he feels he needs to live up to this kind of unrealistic expectations that he set.
Well, I think any time with young players and a young team, there is that worry that you're too hyped up. I mean, right now I'm too hyped up. I got to settle down so I can have a good broadcast along with Chris Stewart, and he'll settle me down. He's a veteran. He'll talk to me, but there's a lot of excitement about year 3 under Avery Johnson, and rightfully so. This is as good a lineup that Alabama has had from top to bottom. This is the best roster that I think we've seen in a long time in Coleman Coliseum. And a lot of the reason for that is the freshmen, and they're young, and Collin Sexton has not had the opportunity to come out for an exhibition game and even play in the opener against Memphis. So this will be his first time with lights on and an official game, and there's a lot of buzz around him and this team. So that's certainly something that you got to calm down. But he's a terrific player, as are all of these freshmen. And that's one of the things I really liked about the opener against Memphis. You had guys play really well in key situations when they needed to. Herbert Jones, I thought, was terrific on both ends of the floor. John Petty was knocking down shots. Galen Smith had to play more than probably expected with the foul trouble, and I thought he played well. And Alex Reese, I thought, maybe was the surprise of the game, the way he played, rebounding the ball, made some big shots in the first half when Memphis was pumped while Alabama was getting in foul trouble, passed the ball really well. So the 4 freshmen that played, I thought, handled themselves extremely well. Didn't get caught up in the moment. They weren't too hot in that first game, but a little different story when you get home and for the first time, and the crowd should be really good. Student section will be hyped. So you got to play hard and be excited, but maintain your composure. But I think that's a problem to have. You want guys that you have to settle down as opposed to hyping up, and I think that'll be the case tonight.
Talking to Bryan Passink, Alabama men's basketball color commentator on CTSN broadcast. You mentioned, the adversity this team has had to overcome with the injuries to Braxton Key, the suspension of Collin Sexton, and also Riley Norris is out for a little bit longer. Ideally, are we talking about an 8-man roster that Avery wants to get comfortable with? But because you're having to play some young guys, you mentioned Smith, you mentioned Alex Reese. Could because they had to play earlier, could that help this team down the road?
It certainly could, and I think guys that are given opportunities, no matter how those opportunities come, whether it's playing more than you were expected to due to foul trouble or guys being hurt, when young players especially take advantage of that, they earn more playing time, and also they give the coaching staff more confidence in calling your number. So I think this team, will end up, and I've heard Abe talk about it, 8 or 9 man rotation, but things happen over the course of the season where you have to have guys ready. I don't think anybody anticipated having 4 guys out for that opener against Memphis. So the young guys and some other guys, they were ready to go, ready to play and contribute, and it's one of the reasons Alabama got the victory. But this non-conference schedule is really tough, and it starts tonight against a really good Lipscomb team who returns 8 out of their top 9 players from a 20-win team a season ago. So there's not a lot of cupcakes on the schedule where you can just roll the ball out there and get easy victories and figure out your rotation. You got to be ready to go from the start of the season against Memphis on Friday night, here against Lipscomb, and there's some really tough non-conference games on the schedule, but it'll get these guys ready for conference play. It'll get them ready, hopefully, to have a good year and get into postseason. But I think the rotation will maybe be a man or 2 shorter than it was last year. And it's not because you don't have capable guys on the roster. This is a roster that you can play deep, and I think will give Avery Johnson and his staff the versatility to play different ways. And whether that's to extend the pressure on the defensive end and press and trap, I think they have the horses to do that. And if it's to play a different way depending on your opponent, they could play that way as well. So I think we'll see some different lineups throughout the season.
Obviously, the excitement of this team is really, on the outside, on the perimeter of the team with the guards they have and some of the slash players they have. But I thought Dante continued to look the way he did down the stretch last year, which is just really starting to come into his own, using his athleticism. He's a force around the rim. I don't know how many dunks, 2 or 3 dunks he had on putbacks, but he looks like he's going to be a major part of this team, Bryan.
Yeah, I agree, and he has looked really good over the course of the summer, preseason practice, and you mentioned the way he finished the year a season ago. Had his first career double-double against the Memphis Tigers and was big in that game. He's someone that can change the game, has changed the game on the defensive end with his ability to block shots and change shots. Now he's picking things up on the offensive end with all putback. He's scoring with a mid-range jump shot in the low post and always a threat to offensive rebound. So he's someone, along with Daniel Giddens, that can give this team some balance offensively because you've got so much talent on the perimeter with guys like Collin Sexton and John Petty and Herbert Jones and also we haven't talked about Braxton Key who's out. He'll be back hopefully within a month. And he's a guy that has a pro potential, would put his name in the NBA draft, decided to come back, and he's really improved his game. Hate that he wasn't able to start the season due to the torn meniscus, but glad that he'll be back sometime in the non-conference schedule. So this team has a lot of ways that they could score, which is not something that we've seen a lot of in recent years. But as Avery and his staff have built this program, I think not only is this team going to be better, but they're going to be a whole lot more fun to watch with the ability to score and score quickly and be able to score from different places on the court.
Wrapping up here with Bryan Passink. You can follow him on Twitter at Bryan with a Y, Passink, Passink. Bryan, from your aspect, I know a lot of people kind of almost lost in the shuffle of this freshman class. Was a kid right down the road from Tuscaloosa, from Hale County High School, Herbert Jones, and heard a lot about him before the season. A lot of people really excited about his potential, how he's kind of growing and has just a world of potential in front of him. But I was wondering, with his length, what can he do defensively for this team?
Well, he can wreak havoc, and I love his game on both ends of the floor. And he's grown to about 6'8" now, and he's got long wingspan and has a high motor, understands how to play, such a high basketball IQ. And he's one that when I saw him play a year or two ago, I thought, well, he's going to be a really good college player, but may take him a year or two to adjust to the college game, but he's going to be a player. Well, I've readjusted my assessment, and that is that he is ready to play now, and he's ready to contribute in a big way to major college basketball and getting into the SEC. He's someone that I think can be a game changer defensively, but also has the ability to score. And with the guys out, he's getting more of an opportunity here in the early going. But I think even once Braxton and Riley and so into the lineup, Herbert Jones is not going to be somebody that you're going to be able to put on the bench with the variety of things he can do on both ends of the floor.